first of all, we are 2 episodes into On the Run.
Right.
All right. So 2 episodes into On the Run. Why am I stressful? Because I would want more viewers to come in and listen to what we have to say. I want to build our viewers up a bit more. So I want to make sure that what we talk about gets that attention also at the same time. So it's a bit stressful for me at this moment. Yeah.
Okay, so different people feel stressed about different things. How would you know that you're stressed?
Um, so for me, myself, as an individual, how do I know I'm stressed? Usually I do get little bits of headache. So I do feel that muscle on both sides of my temple squeezing a bit more. Sometimes I feel my eyes, my eyeball, that area heats up a bit more.
Right.
You can feel it's like a bit more hotter than usual.
Mhm.
The other one that happens is that the muscles around my jaw, they tend to ache a bit, and I tend to need to squish it a bit more, or sometimes clench my jaws a bit more. And that is a personal sign to me that I'm probably a bit more stressed than usual. Yeah.
Right, right. What are some stressful signs that you see in your thought process at that point of time?
That's a very good question. In fact, I feel that sometimes when I'm a bit more stressful, there are things that I can't think clearly at times. Sometimes there are questions that I think in normal situations I could probably find answers more easily.
Right.
But when I'm stressed up, when I have my thoughts a bit more clouded up in a sense, so I can't think clearly, I probably have issues being able to answer questions which would be more simple in normal times. That's what happens to me. What about you, Hajit? I mean, what happens?
For me, it definitely clouds my thought. So when I'm stressed, I am kind of immobilized at the moment in the sense that I need to gain control over my thoughts,
Okay.
physical sensations I'm feeling at that
All right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
So it does hamper my decision making,
Okay.
my being rational at that point of time, right? So, yeah, more so on these lines. I think there's a level of awareness now at this point of time for me. So I can sense I'm beginning to get stressed.
I know what you mean. So, I mean, good that you mentioned the rational part, the rational thought part. I do find that my emotions are also affected. I tend to get angry more easily. Probably get a bit more upset. Being sad, maybe lesser, but there are times that could happen.
Right.
So my emotions are definitely much more affected when I'm a bit more stressed up. That's what I notice. Do you feel the same, Hajit?
It is, it is. And do you know what is the science behind the stress? Let's discover that a little more.
I mean, if we give the most professional dictionary-like answer, it would be stress is a natural type of response. It comes naturally. It's not something that, I mean, we could induce it, but usually it's naturally that it occurs.
Yep.
And usually it occurs when you are faced with challenges, you are faced with demands.
Yep.
And these demands can be physically, can be emotionally, and can be mentally. And your body actually reacts to all these threats, I would say.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Let me throw in a little bit of jargon in
Okay.
addition to what you have shared. So we give our listeners a little more perspective of what is going on within our body.
Okay.
Have you heard about the adrenaline rush?
Adrenaline rush, I have actually.
So it has to do with excitement,
Okay.
but it also has to do with stress.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is this hormone that kicks in when one is stressed. It is actually, you've heard of the fight and flight,
Fight or flight, okay.
fight or flight
Okay.
scenario as well, right?
Yes.
So when there's an adrenaline rush,
All right.
the hormones are actually preparing us,
Okay.
the person who is stressed, preparing us to face that situation. So everything goes in almost like a fast forward mode.
I see. Okay.
And that is the reason. So the moment I got to know about this hormone, I was like, okay, that is the reason why when I'm stressed, I'm not able to think clearly because everything is rushed. Everything is like fast forward mode.
I see. Your body is reacting to that threat or the stress.
And that releases the hormone.
Okay, okay.
At the same time, what also happens is there's release of cortisol.
Okay.
And what does cortisol do here? This is our calming hormone.
Calming,
But calming
okay.
in the sense, it shuts off all the other parts of the system,
All right.
the physical system that is not needed at that point of time.
Okay.
Right? So that is the reason. Have you heard of things like, I don't feel hungry?
Yes, of course. Usually when I'm stressed.
Right. So what is happening? Actually, cortisol is the one which is shutting off the system.
Okay, okay.
Does it make sense now?
I mean, it makes a bit more sense. I'm not too sure. Maybe as for us, it's easy to understand this a bit more than the rest. But I think not too sure about our listeners. The general public, I think you all get a gist of it about what what type of hormones are working in the background and how it affects at the same time, right?
So let's go on to what are some situations when people feel stressed?
I think most commonly, usually, I mean, in our local context, is when we have exams and tests.
Yes.
We have deadlines to meet, or you try very hard and sometimes people do not understand you and you feel that stress. What about you, Harjit? I mean, were there times that you feel that stress a bit more?
Absolutely can relate to examinations.
Okay.
Can relate to deadlines.
I think that's international.
Sometimes the stress can also be created by ourselves.
It could be, okay.
Based on our expectations. Because it may not be an examination.
Yep.
May not be a submission of an assignment or a report.
Okay.
But it is just our expectations of, for example, I've got a friend, excellent cook, but she's got that high expectations of herself that if she invites her friends over and she is preparing, a meal, so her expectation is the dishes should turn out par excellence.
Okay.
Right? So that is another component which stresses out some people as
well. I mean, when I first started in this professional sector, I did get stressed with trying to help with my clients at times. So I would say that when I try really hard and I give them all the information, and at times I do try to point them in the right direction and they still do not get it. And I'll get really stressed about it because they don't seem to be able to see that I'm trying to help them that much and they still go in the wrong direction at times. And that stresses me out initially when I first started out in this profession.
Right. So what was the stress because of the expectation that you had of yourself, or the stress because of the other person is not getting what I'm asking?
I think in this case that I just mentioned, that this is two things actually. Is this the expectation that, I'm giving all this information, it should be helpful, but am I not giving enough?
Right.
Am I not giving enough is one of the expectations. Could I give even more?
Right.
All right. And then the other one is, of course, my expectation is that it's so straightforward. The answer is just there. Why is my clients not getting it? Why is he or she still doing the things that doesn't benefit them? And that could be also another expectations that I have for my clients.
Right. And while we are on the topic of what causes, stress to various people, my thoughts suddenly went back to my role as a parent. Sometimes it's also stressful when we are managing our children.
Yes, definitely.
Right. And this is something, in our profession, being in the social service sector, we hear from parents very frequently. Right. So there is a similarity between parenting and the stress related to it with what you just mentioned about you being a professional.
I think it's similar at times. Of course, the challenges can be different, but there is similarities in the stress. From the two, I feel the same way at times also when the stress. Not much difference, not much changes in my body reactions itself. Yeah, I feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I used to get a little more stressed when it would come to, a topic between me and my children.
Okay.
And I wondered why that was. And through the course of my experience in the social service sector, I realized that
Yes.
it was not just my expectation of myself as a parent, also my expectation of my children.
Okay.
And the emotional attachment that I have with my children.
Would you put it in a way that it's because it's really, really important to you? It's something that's you prioritize as something of high importance that could make it even more stressful? I mean, in comparison, work could be stressful, but given the fact that work and family, I know that you probably put your family on top, so that would be more important. And would that make it even more stressful?
Okay, let me give an example to that, such that what we're discussing becomes a little more concrete. So, just for example, that there is an expectation that homework is completed before children have dinner, especially when my children were in primary school, right? And when homework is not completed, it's dinner time. Children are at the dinner table and the homework is not completed.
Okay. Okay.
And it would be like, it's a very clear instruction. It has been put across clearly, repeated multiple times, but has not happened. And that would cause me to think, how am I supposed to put across information such that the children understand what needs to be done?
I see. Okay. As Triple P trainers, both of us,
Right.
we talk about this a lot of time, but when it happens to us, sometimes it turns out differently. Am I right to say that?
Right.
Yeah, and that could stress us out also.
And we are fortunate being in this, sector, being Triple P
Yes.
trained, running programs like Signposts, like Purposeful Play, and you're also running the I5 program.
Yes, I'm running the Incredible Years program. So that one, we have to work with the children on the many concerns or issues that they are facing.
Right.
Also, then we have to work with the parents so that they do the same things that we are teaching their children. So with that particular program itself, I do get to work with the children, and at times it feels like parenting the children at the same time also. Yeah, and it could be stressful.
So, since we've spoken about stress and the various, the whole range of stressors, let's speak about how can one manage stress.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me start out. So for me, how do I cope with my stress is, first of all, after work, I try to put all my work behind, things that I don't want to bring back with me. So what do I do? How do I put it? What do I do, and what can I do to help relieve the stress? So first of all, I do play a little bit of games.
Games as in which games? Am I thinking the right game?
Yeah, mobile games.
Okay,
I do play a little bit of mobile
so you're
games.
into gaming.
Yes, I'm into gaming. Yes. So gamings, I usually play games that do not need to use that much of my brain, so that I don't have to engage it anymore. It's just an action of just distracting me from what are things that are happening that could be stressful. So playing games are helpful for me.
Right.
I also do a bit of reading. So when you're reading, it's very hard for you to be thinking of anything else because you're focused on the topic that you're reading. That also helps distract me away from the stresses that I'm having.
Right.
And of course, my very own favorite is sleeping. Sleeping helps me relieve the stress itself. When I'm sleeping, I don't have to think about the things that stress me out in the first place.
So the three solutions that I hear from you, the first one, watching TV, sounds like a game. Was it?
Playing mobile games.
Playing mobile games.
Am I stressing you out now?
No. So I'm drawing a comparison between what my husband does when he gets back from work.
Okay.
Right. After a while, he is watching TV. But actually, he's zoned out. I know he's not actually watching TV, but he is sitting in front of the TV.
Incidentally, I wanted to ask you, do you think his mind is on whatever he's watching?
So when you mentioned that you play a game which is simple and easy.
Yep.
So for me, it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like when there's some level of stress, you are going into a zone where you don't have to think, you don't have to do anything.
I do not want to think about anything, especially when I'm stressed out, especially.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second one you mentioned was reading a book.
Yes, reading a book, an ebook.
Okay, an ebook. So that is distracting.
Yeah, it can be distracting.
Bringing your attention to something else.
To focus on something else, yes.
Such that that thought or whatever activity it was that stresses you out, that is out of your range.
Yeah, I think same applies for all our listeners here. When they are listening to somebody talk, sometimes that helps with relieving the stress. And I hope we are relieving your stress.
And that is what the counselors, Triple P practitioners, the parenting, family wellness experts are.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, listening to reading or listening to an audiobook or listening to a podcast or sometimes watching a video online, it does help to relieve the stress. But we need to take note. And I'm pretty sure what I'm talking about, Harjit, you have different ways to cope with your stress. Everybody is unique in the way they cope with their stress. That's why I think, and I hear from my many clients, that's how they do things differently, they handle things differently. Even in the way they breathe is different at the same time. So everybody has unique ways to cope with their stress or to manage their stress.
Well, one interesting point comes to my mind. So the third one you mentioned was sleep. Sleep is once again inactivity, if I may use it. So it's very interesting that your methods of calming yourself are these three, which are either distracting or zoning out or resting or relaxing. For me, it's the opposite.
Oh, wow.
So when I am stressed, instead of just sitting and watching something, I actually love to go for a walk.
Yes, I notice you go out for walks quite often at times. Yes.
Somehow it is something which calms me.
Okay.
It is something which gives me perspective.
Okay.
And yes, you're right. Even in the middle of the day, I'm the kind of person who would want to get back to that stability zone. As the day goes by and things are happening during the day, I want to recalibrate once again, even if it's in the middle of the day, a hot summer afternoon, and then start of second half of the day. And when I go back home, if possible, if time permits, I actually like to go for a walk again.
I see. Okay. I mean, it's good to take a small little breaks in between as and when you can do it. Because sometimes holding on to the stress that long is not really healthy for us. And in fact, it could give us more problems, in fact. I do have colleagues that would get sick. I do have clients that actually get sick from holding in to stress. Or holding it in too long, I would say. Yeah.
True. So it's very interesting to know that some people would actually get into inactivity zone, whereas others would get into an activity zone.
Yeah. So it's really different from person to person.
Right.
And interestingly, I mean, as professionals who have dealt with many clients, and I do have a client, I don't know whether you can call it a funny story or a funny joke.
Share with us.
I mean, how she manages her stress when she gets into stressful situations. She wants to relieve herself from that stress. She tells me she has to eat potato chips.
What's potato chips?
So basically, it's the little packets of traveler's size fried chips.
And how many of them is the question I'm thinking about?
Okay, so I mean, it was funny that for her it's in that situation where she needs to reduce the stress or relieve herself that much, she just gets a little small packet, and that would be good enough.
Just one?
not just one chip, but one packet itself.
One packet.
Yeah. But the interesting thing about one packet, she has criteria to that one packet.
Okay.
Okay, it must be ruffled potato chips, the chips with little ridges.
Yep.
It must be a sour cream flavored potato chip.
Wow.
If not, that's not good enough.
Okay.
And it must be of a specific brand, which I will not say here until we get sponsors in.
Okay, I get it.
So it must be a specific brand, it must be a specific flavor, and it must have a certain amount of chips. If not, it's not relieving enough for her. It's not going to help her calm down.
So it is that specific size that
Exactly. Yes.
But would you think that is a productive way to manage stress?
Well, I mean, for her, she told me that that's the only way that she has it. Of course, I have also explored and have discussions with her. What are the other ways that she can use on top of that? But for her, she find that this is the most useful one.
It works for her.
It works for her.
So the other thing that comes to my mind is chocolate.
So then again, does chocolate work for you, Haji?
I love chocolate, but I know of people who would sit and have lots of chocolate, who would have tubs of ice cream when they are stressed.
I mean, just on that same line of eating sweet food, I have a personal colleague that loves to eat sweet food, loves to take bubble tea, loves to eat donuts, and that's her way of managing stress.
Oh, is it so?
And she tends to be a bit more happy after having all that.
So it gives her that sugar high.
Yes, correct. So I think that's her way of calming herself down from a day of stressful stress.
Okay. So if now we've spoken about some of the different ways that people use to calm themselves or manage their stress. Now, if it's a parent or if it's a caregiver and this person sees that the child or whoever she's giving care to, providing care, is stressed, how do you think this caregiver could help, or the parent could help this other person who is stressed?
Okay, so other than just going in and tell them how they could relieve their stress, because everybody is different, you can offer your opinion, but it may not work for the child or the particular caregiver. I think giving them certain things to do, to like how to clear, instead of coming down, I mean, helping them manage what stresses them could be very useful.
Right.
I think first of all is we can help to discuss with them what are the things that causing that stress, to find out a bit more. I mean, do they need to prioritize certain tasks, prioritize certain work, so that they don't feel like, oh, everything needs to be done in the same amount of time in a certain way.
Right.
Okay. So prioritizing and making a list probably helps them to see which one I can go to first, and it helps to reduce a bit of that, I think.
Right. So while I think about parents, I would also say if a parent is trying to manage the stress, we are just in term 2, beginning of term 2, so it's still a period which is not in the red zone yet, right? So if a parent sees that the child is stressed, what they could definitely do would be to touch base with them, talk to them, like you were just mentioning. Get them to share what is stressing them if they're open to it, depending on the age of the child. What could also be very beneficial is while the child is managing his or her stress, to still carry on following their routine.
Yeah. So I think, like you mentioned, for routine, the management of the time is very important.
Sure.
I think it's good to have discussions and know when or where to allocate certain specific time slots for certain activities. I think that would be very helpful also at the same time. What do you think, Harjit?
Absolutely. And the other tip I would actually give to parents who are managing the stress of the children will be to also watch their devices usage and the amount of sleep that they're getting.
These two things are what parents constantly come to me with, Harjit. So the device use is definitely something that parents tend to ask me what to do. And of course, you can set boundaries and set time within the schedules or routines to let them have a bit of their fun. But it must be, I would say it must be well managed, I feel. All right. But at the same time, I think also the other thing is that we also want to plan breaks in between, times where they are not doing anything or probably sitting down and looking at nature could be very useful. I think something that most of our kids these days do less. So I think that could be very useful also in their schedules itself. Yeah.
Yeah, but something just came to my mind while you were sharing about this. Is stress always bad? I mean, we have this connotation which we have given to stress. That stress means we are unable to handle the situation, we are unable to make a rational decision. So is it always bad to be, under some level of stress?
Well, it's very interesting because I do tend to tell parents or the clients that I see that, to have a bit of stress sometimes can be beneficial in certain situations. I think number one for myself is that when I'm stressed, I notice that I'm a bit more focused. I tend to be a bit more focused. I'm locked down. I'm also a bit more alert to the things that's happening around me. I'm not, although I may not be able to think that clearly, but I'm really, really alert to things that's happening around me. And that I feel that is a beneficial part of stress. What about you, Harjit? What do you think, what are the other benefits that stress could be?
Absolutely. It's actually, what I would tell my clients is, think of a day where there's no stress, there's no urgency to do anything, and you are just there doing things at your own pace.
Okay.
Right? Some people may still be able to accomplish, whatever tasks they would have thought for that point of, that particular day. But some level, even research actually proves that some level of stress is good for us,
Definitely.
for students, for adults as well, because it gets us going, just like you
mentioned. So we are so used to having a little bit of stress. So let's say for in any instances that where we face with a stress that we normally don't encounter, we are much better at managing that rather than you have never encountered stress and you come up with something that could be very big and very heavy and then you cannot handle the stress in that moment. Do you think that's right, Ajay?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just that when things get, so we were talking about a situation where people are able to get that focus. They're able to manage, with a little more effort, a little more focus. It's only when it goes beyond the ability of a person to manage it, and it is recurring over a longer period of time, that it builds up to a bigger stress.
Yeah, when it builds up to a bigger stress, I understand that it also affects your health that much. Yeah, it affects your health. Includes a few things. Your heart rate could increase, your muscle tension, you get irritable, and in some even more serious cases, you could even have high blood pressure. Your immunity will be affected. And some people go into depression and sometimes even anxiety itself. I think that's quite serious. So we need to start learning how to help ourselves to calm down a bit more. I think that would be very helpful for our listeners here. Right.
So there's a friend of mine who says, I've got to find and learn every strategy to manage.
Every strategy?
Because she says, the phases when she gets very stressed, she can see that she starts graying. She sees she starts getting eye bags under her eyes. And she says, this is something which I don't want.
Of course.
So these are some physical effects on the body.
So we are more motivated, or should I say your friend is more motivated to not be stressed or to use the strategies that we are going to recommend to our listeners. I think some of them, there's many strategies out there. I mean, when you Google there is, but we do have a few that we want to recommend to our listeners that could help them with the stress they are facing. Right, Ajit?
You start off with the first one, I'll add the second.
I'll start off with the first one. Okay, I feel a bit of stress now. Okay, so I'll start off with
breathe in, breathe out.
You just gave me the answer. So we want to start with relaxation exercises or relaxation techniques.
Right.
So that could include deep breathing, which is breathe in, breathe out. Okay. The other one could be meditation, but meditation needs some level of getting used to it. I think that also fits into the line of relaxation exercises. Then, of course, there is such a thing called progressive muscle relaxation, which sometimes I listen to audios and follow the instructions to relax my muscles.
So is this similar to the body scan, which is very popular these days?
It is similar in a sense. Body scanning could also see, I mean, what is the body feeling at the same time. It falls into the same vein actually, I feel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let me add on to the list. That is,
Alright.
the fourth thing that comes to my mind is visualization.
Visualization, all right?
Right? So I have come across some parents who feel their children do well with visualization.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
So where time permits, where the stress is in a situation, just for example, the child is sitting in an examination hall, attempting the paper and suddenly blanks out.
I see. Okay.
Right? And this is where one of the mums had suggested to the son to actually pause, hold on for a bit, and visualize that he has covered all the topics, he has studied and prepared, and he has the capability to do it.
Okay. Okay.
Right? So that involves an aspect of actually also slowing down.
Yes. Okay.
Slowing down the thoughts,
Okay.
right? Gathering back the attention, visualizing that I can do it, and then getting onto the task.
Okay, that sounds very similar to my other client, which her son gets stresses out very easily. And after discussion, we found out that the only way to help her son calm down and relieve himself and not be stressed is actually looking at his mother's photo.
So sweet.
So that's sweet. So and it works for him because it's in his wallet, and when he feels stressed, he just pulls out the photo, he looks at his mom, and he feels a bit more calmer.
Yeah, yeah. So the gist behind both the things, what I've mentioned and you've mentioned, is to either visualize something that calms you down, whether it is, I have the capability to do it, whether it's the thoughts, or to visualize a person or a thing. I also know of some parents who have told their children, you can chant, a particular line,
Okay.
an affirmation to self.
A positive sentence, a positive word. I think that's really helpful at times.
Yep.
I do sometimes say that to myself. I said, Sean, you can do it. Sean, you are doing very well. You can keep up with this. And that can be helpful also at the same time. I feel that.
So I know your trick now. And the
Yeah,
next time I see you around stressed at work.
The other trick that I use most of the time is seeking support from other people, seeking help from other people. I think we want to advocate that. Like, how am I doing it here now? First of all, my ideas that I'm sharing, there will be always more, and I seek Harjit's help to give me that support and that stress release a bit more.
My pleasure. So what I would like to add on that note is sometimes there is a stigma of whether I should seek help or not.
Yes, definitely a lot of it.
And sometimes the help could even come from your social support system.
I do agree with you because I do have youths that tell me that I do not want to seek help from a counselor or a social worker. Why? Because you will make me look crazy in the first place.
And sometimes there are youth or teenagers who don't want to even approach their parents.
Yes, because they feel that if I approach my parents and talk about certain things, they might scold me for it.
Right.
And that makes things worse.
Right. Having, spoken about some of the thoughts people have on seeking help, we would still highly recommend that, if something is going out of your hand, definitely, take the courage, cool yourself, calm yourself, bring the focus, try to handle it on your own. If that is not working, seek professional help.
Definitely. I think that is really, really helpful. I mean, from the many years of experience between both of us combined, there is definitely benefits for seeking help from another professional. Definitely.
So if it's a child, we've got counselors in the schools.
Definitely.
If it is a working professional, there may be some support system in the HR department.
Well, HR, you can, if you feel that HR probably is not listening that much, you can always go to external counselor.
Right.
Or there are many centers out there that are more than willing to provide support for you. So do not I mean, do not be afraid to step forward. Other than that, you can always come to us.
Morning Star is here for you.
Yes, Morning Star is definitely here for you. Sometimes you don't know what you're looking for. You can just give a call to us or send us an email, and we will actually direct you in the right direction. And that could be helpful for your situation. Or if you're feeling the stress that we are talking about today, we could actually assist you with that also at the same time.
This brings to my mind the calming music that was on just before we
Earlier
started
on,
our
I felt so
session.
calm, I almost fell asleep. I got so distracted, I didn't feel I needed to be stressed out anymore after listening to that music.
Right. So it is music too that helps some people calm down. Now let's go on to the question. So we have spoken about stress arises, and we've got these various strategies to, calm ourselves or to manage the stress. Could we do something even before the stress arises?
I think that shouldn't be an issue in the first place. I think the first few things that we mentioned about organization, time management, all these can be done way before the stress happens. Priority of tasks and all that can be done before the stress. Taking breaks can be done before the stress. And of course, we can also practice gratitude.
Absolutely.
Practice gratitude, practice mindfulness is all the rage these days. And that could be something that you can do before you even get yourself into a stressful situation.
Yeah. So on the same note, some of the things that could be done, from the preventative point of view, would be if you already know what works for you.
Okay.
Whether it is gaming within limits, whether it's reading a book, sleeping, jogging, music, visualization, or the various techniques that we've spoken about. If you are self-aware about what works for you, then at that point of time where the stress kicks in, you know what to resort to.
I very often in times tell my clients that you actually want to note it down, because at least you won't forget in those situations, which is a possibility. I have parents that tell me, Sean, when I'm so stressed out, I forget what I need to be doing already. And I said, let's make a list. And when you're stressed, just take out your list, look at it, and you pick one from there to try.
Right. The other preventive measure could be actually identifying the trigger.
Okay. Definitely very useful. First and foremost, then you know in what situations that you will be stressed out, and then you can do something about it way before you get into even more tension, I would say.
Right. One classic example comes to my mind. This used to happen when my son was in secondary school. And for obvious reasons, it was not me who used to wake him up in the morning. Because I do know a lot of parents also face this where, you want to ensure children get to school on time. They don't get up on time. And you start off the day on the note where the child is not getting up on time and I'm stressed, and you're pushing the child and the child is stressed.
You are stressed, the child also stressed.
Absolutely. So if things have been happening and you know the trigger that stresses you up, that is one of the easy ways to be prepared for how to handle that stressful situation, because the moment you enter your child's room, it's probably 6 o'clock. It's time to leave home soon, and the child is still fast asleep in dreamland. Right?
Okay.
So knowing the triggers is another preventive way
definitely.
to manage.
Definitely. So the situation or whatever that is happening that could trigger you off, it is important, and it helps you do a lot of preventive work. That means you can come down way before you fully get stressed out in the first place.
Right. Yeah. And the one last thing that I would like to add under this category would be your own reactions.
The body reactions that we mentioned earlier?
Body reactions. More importantly, how you're going to react to that situation.
Can you give me an example then?
Okay. So, example, let's just get back to the picking up the child in the morning. So, one common thing that parents do would be go and repeat
Okay.
again and again and again,
Okay.
nag again and again,
Okay.
and then it would go on to raise your volume,
Okay.
right? And then when the child finally rubs his eyes and gets up, we are probably, at reaching the temperature is
We
shooting.
are there already. We are there. Just
Right.
a bit more and it probably pop.
So how does the parent react or respond at that point of time could also help us manage the stress.
I see. Okay.
And this is something if we as parents, we as adults, we as working as adults, think about what stresses us. There are some things which happen in life frequently. It could even be, within family, could be between husband, wife, could be between the boss and a subordinate, between colleagues, between in-laws and,
Yeah, I
maybe
think
the
there's many
son-in-law, maybe
situations. Yeah.
the daughter-in-law. So if we know there are situations which occur frequently, and if we are able to actually manage our response to it, that could help manage stress as well. Of course, you need a lot more awareness at that point of time, control over your thoughts and emotions, and it builds up the time. It's a matter of practice how you build that up.
I see. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it doesn't work the first time round. It definitely takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of experimentation. So do not be afraid that sometimes it fails. And we are only human beings. It is normal that it's going to happen, but we do learn from our failures, right?
Right. Okay. So we've covered quite a few things. We've covered, what causes us stress. What are some ways we handle stress? What are some ways we can, prepare ourselves way before the stress comes?
There are some ways that we can look out for that stress, how we react to that stress you mentioned earlier on.
Right.
I think those are very important things. And of course, looking out for the triggers, the situations, the things that happen that could stress us out is really, really important also. So it's a combination of all the list of items. And if you don't remember what you're talking about, pull back that tab and listen to us once more.
Right. Okay. So as we come towards the, a conclusion, the end of this particular on the run session, what is some important message you would like to give to our listeners?
So I would like to say that most importantly is we need to take note that our mental wellness is really, really important. So it's good to always start early and not wait until when things happen, then we decide to do something about it. And I think that's really, really important. What about you, Harjit? Do you have anything to say to our listeners?
Yeah. To sum up, what I would like to say is, as years go by, as days go by, take breaks frequently.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So when the train is running non-stop, there is a likelihood of break.
Definitely.
So take breaks as and when time permits, intentionally, right? On the same note, take care of yourself and your mental well-being. Yeah.
We give you permission to take care of yourself. Definitely.
And as you hear us giving you permission to take care of yourself, give yourself the permission to do that as well.
Definitely. All right.
And that's a big one where I see a lot of adults take on the responsibility, whether it's work, whether it is the family, take on that responsibility and feel guilty about taking breaks, doing something for themselves, right? So give yourself that permission to take care of yourself. Go out. There are plenty of things like we've shared.
Go out for a walk. There's something that you enjoy. Go out and have some fun. Have a coffee break. I think those are really good ones. We just have to remember that everyone experiences stress differently. So if you don't experience stress the same way that we have described, I think it's okay, but it is important to find coping strategies that work best for you. So you need to shuffle around, test what worked for you, then experiment with the different techniques, then slowly incorporate them into your daily lives. Then it builds resilience and it also helps you effectively manage stress when we encounter it.
I think you've summed up really well, Sean.
Thank you, Harjit.
Really summed up well. And what I would like to add is please go on to the social media of Morningstar Community Services.
Definitely.
We've got a range of programs, a range of services we provide. Go on to it on our website, on the Facebook.
Yes,
Instagram.
definitely. We have Facebook, we have IG, we have the Telegram channel. So do join us in those different platforms to get more information other than just coping stress. We get more information of the different programs for different things that you are facing.
So hope you have, gained some information out of this, some strategies that you could use in your life. We've got a chat here on the YouTube. If you've got a question, if you've got an interesting topic that you would like to listen to in our next On the Run.
Yeah, make a comment. Let us know what other topics do you want to listen to or see us discuss about it. I think that's really important to us. It helps us focus on what are the different things that you want to talk about. Right.
All right. Okay. And let's call it a day. Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you.
Thank you, Harjit. Thank you for joining us, all the listeners. And we hope to see you in the next podcast for On the Run. All right.
Take care and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.